In 2014, Sacramento voters rejected Measure L, former Mayor Kevin Johnson's effort to create a strong mayor system of city governance. Strong Mayor is back in 2020 with Measure A. Joining us to discuss Measure A's pros and cons are supporters, Mayor Darrell Steinberg and Mayor Pro Tem Angelique Ashby, as well as opponents, former Mayor Heather Fargo and activist Flojaune Cofer. Mayor Steinberg and Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, this issue was strongly rejected 6 years ago. What is your reasoning for again putting such a similar measure back before the voters?
Thank you very much, Scott, for having this conversation today. Sacramento has changed a lot in 6 years. There is a big gap between what people want in this city and this current system ability to deliver. And there is no greater example than the issue of homelessness. You know, in San Diego, the mayor has executive authority and was able to lead the building of 700 beds of shelter in just under 4 months. In Sacramento, for example, we approved a women's shelter in South Sacramento in August of 2019. It just opened last week. 14 months. The difference? The mayor of San Diego has emergency executive authority to be able to follow through on the policy direction that the council asked for and that the people want. Things move way too slow on the most urgent matters facing Sacramento. We need a system that is more responsive and has a greater ability to follow through.
Okay. Councilwoman Ashby, you're the Mayor Pro Tem of Sacramento, but you are a councilwoman as well. What brings you to supporting a strong mayor system that some might say diminishes the role of a council member like yourself?
Well, I don't think it diminishes the role of a council member. If I did, I wouldn't support it. But I also think that it's just time for Sacramento. Other big cities have an executive mayor system: Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, San Francisco, Portland, Phoenix, Denver. And in my role as council member, we've competed against those cities, whether it was for keeping our basketball team, for getting Centene, for MLS, and we're always at a disadvantage. There's nothing that we can't do, but this is really about how quickly we can do it. And the mayor's given you a terrific example. Sure, we can put up homeless shelters, but we're about 1.5 years behind other cities that have executive mayor authority. If I were mayor, I would want this in place. As a council member, I think it gives our city an advantage. And I live in Sacramento. I want our city to have every tool possible to serve the people here.
Okay. Mayor Fargo, Ms. Cofer, your response?
I'll go ahead and start with that. And first of all, I think the mayor knows that there's a reason why San Diego was able to move so quickly in their first round of homeless shelters. And that was because they were able to avoid a lot of the requirements that had been waived in the post-COVID immediate changes that took place. Those don't exist anymore. And that's why it's taking San Diego the same amount of time it's taking us. The city manager put this into a memo to all the council members and the mayor a few weeks ago to explain it. I just don't agree that if he had executive power or was a strong mayor that he'd be able to deal with the homelessness problem any more quickly. I don't see any other city that has a strong mayor doing anything more effectively than we are in dealing with homelessness. It's a real crisis, and I think we all want it to be fixed sooner, but I don't think this is the solution. I don't think this will work.
Ms. Cofer?
I totally agree with former Mayor Heather Fargo that the issues that are plaguing us in terms of responding to homelessness, and I am really in support of responding to this issue, extend far beyond who is in the executive authority position. They extend to how we contract, how we go about. Mayor Pro Tem Angelique Ashby has, on many instances, cited Centene, and those are major issues that exist throughout the city of Sacramento in terms of how we acquire contracts. And I don't think that will automatically be fixed by having a strong mayor. I think also the council can come together and can make executive decisions, and sometimes the inability to do so is what's hampering us, not the fact that there's not a pathway to be able to move things forward.
Okay. Mayor Steinberg, Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, I want to come back to this again and spend just a little bit more time on this, because when I think about the litany of things that have been accomplished here, everything from the Golden One Center to the announcements related to Major League Soccer to the work that's being done on improving our civic and cultural amenities, things like the Powerhouse Science Center and others, it seems like big things are getting done. So how do you respond to Ms. Cofer and former Mayor Fargo's statement that the things are working pretty well right now?
I'll let my colleague go first. Go ahead, Angelique.
Yeah, I'll start. Sure. Hey, I'll take it. I've been on that council for 10 years. Those are all big accomplishments that I've been a part of. And I would agree. Sacramento's done some great things. And long before I got here, Mayor Fargo, Mayor Cerna, they've all done great things. The question, Scott, is how quickly do you want them? I'll give you a real life example. I fought for the janitors at City Hall to get health care for 2 years. My colleagues voted yes with me 2 years ago. But it took 2 years to get that through the city management system. Project labor agreements, this is a union town. We all agreed we wanted to do everything we could to ensure union labor worked on jobs in Sacramento. Kevin Johnson wanted it, Darrell Steinberg wanted it. It took us several years to get it in place. And even after it was in place, the monitoring of it to make sure that it happens continues to plague the city of Sacramento. Those are issues that occur because the top person is an unelected official. The question in front of people today isn't whether or not you want one person to have this power. One person already has this power. The question is, do you want that person to be an elected official that you chose, or do you want it to be an administrator that 9 council members chose?
That's interesting. And Councilwoman Ashby, I want to stay with you for just a second.
Sure.
Because you are alluding to the person that currently runs our city government on a day-to-day basis, which is the city manager.
Yes.
And while there are some who say that the city manager is the all-powerful sort of shadow shogun of Sacramento, you in particular have been renowned in your effectiveness in representing your district and getting resources for your district. How do you respond to the view that by removing the mayor as a voting member of the council and granting the mayor, whoever it is, let's depersonalize this from Mayor Steinberg, over council decisions, you are diminishing council members in ways that the current structure doesn't do, and you end up in a net loss position with less power to secure city resources for your district?
Well, first of all, thank you for the nice compliment. I've worked hard for my district, and I'm glad that people see that work. I don't think that what you have stated is true. Removing the mayor from land use decisions, removing him from the mundane parts of council meetings doesn't diminish council members at all. In fact, at the end of the day, Measure A gives the strongest authority to a vote of 6 council members. Remember, one council member will rise up to be president of that council. Another will be second chair on that council. It will also allow us to add a 9th person. That means maybe we can get another woman or replace the LGBTQ member that we just lost. It means more diversity amongst the leadership for the city of Sacramento. If I believed that council members would lose authority and lose power under this, I wouldn't support it. I've been there the longest of any member, and I promise you, I understand very well how the system works and how these adjustments would bring strength to our city. And at the end of the day, what's best for every council member is that Sacramento is strong as a whole.
Mayor Fargo, Ms. Cofer, I'd ask you to respond.
Yeah, I just so strongly disagree. I also, and I think Howard Chan is also offended by who's the current city manager, this term of being an unelected official. Of course he's unelected. He is appointed by the mayor and the city council. And if they're so unhappy with the job he's doing, they need to garner the 6 votes to get rid of him and get someone who they think can be more effective. This change really does diminish the power of the council members, I believe, and their ability to speak on behalf of their neighborhoods and get things done. And I think when you diminish the council members, you diminish the voters and the residents in each one of those districts, each one of those neighborhood associations. And I don't really know why certainly all the contract laws that exist now, all the planning processes that exist now are going to exist in the future. And so a lot of what is wrong with Sacramento is what's wrong with California. It's very hard to finance anything in local government. It's hard to get anything approved. None of that changes if you go to a stronger form of government. And I really do feel that part of what's going to happen then is if you get rid of the city manager, whoever's the mayor's chief of staff is going to be the new city manager, because there's no way the mayor is going to be doing the day-to-day operations that the city manager does. Still going to be the political leader of the city, still going to have major responsibilities beyond the city as a regional leader or statewide leader. I just don't see that this is an effective way of getting things done more quickly.
Ms. Cofer?
Well, at first, Scott, I had to slightly disagree with the framing of your first question, because I don't necessarily think things are working well now. I just don't think this is the answer to fixing those things. So I think that there is a challenge that has been rightly identified. I just don't believe that this is the solution to that challenge. What I see as somebody who does management is a management issue. And I see the council needing to sit down and work together. And the example I'll use is that our city manager, Howard Chan, asked the council and the mayor to come up with priorities for the city. He said 3 to 5. They came up with 19. That's not a way to run a city. And so when you have 19 priorities, it's really hard to pick and choose what things you're going to select out of that to move forward in a year. And when it comes to diminishing council members, yes, council members will still exist. I am in favor of having more representative leadership. I'd love to double the size of the council if we could, because I think smaller districts give people more influence and more real voices at the table. The challenge, however, for me is that we're about to have some of the youngest and the most progressive, and to Mayor Pro Tem's argument, more potentially women, at least one, coming to the council in the fall. And in the middle of having been elected into a job, think about joining for a job and then they change the job description on you before you even get sworn in, right? I think that's really challenging. And I think when we have younger people, more people of color joining the council, I think it's really important that they have an opportunity to be able to potentially, make some of the changes that we'd like to see here. So the idea of having veto authority given to one person, the idea of shifting the power dynamics right in the middle of an election, because some people have already been elected in, is challenging to me and is incredibly troubling.
It's interesting you say that, Ms. Cofer, because I was speaking to Councilwoman-elect Katie Valenzuela yesterday, who was also potentially going to participate in the show. And the comment that she made, and I asked her for permission to be able to share this, is that she said that this is not the job that she ran for office for if Measure A passes. And I'm curious, Mayor Steinberg, how you would respond to that point, that fundamentally Ms. Valenzuela's assertion is that the job of council member is going to shift in some permanent way because of the passage of this measure.
Well, as Mayor Pro Tem Ashby said, I think the role of the city council is actually going to be enhanced under Measure A, because they will have exclusive authority over land use decisions. They write the budget separate from the mayor. They have authority over all public housing issues. They have the ability to put any city charter change on the ballot without the mayor. But I want to go back to something Dr. Cofer said, because in some ways I think it makes the case. She said we have a management problem. First of all, I'm a big fan of Howard Chan. I think he's a great city manager, and I would keep him, by the way, if Measure A passes. But she said the city council identified 19 priorities. And that's exactly the problem. This system, there are too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to follow through, because the people are demanding an equity agenda, for example. And by the way, this isn't just about changing the structure of government. This is about guaranteeing $40 million a year for our neighborhoods, because I argue that the neighborhoods and neighborhood-based economic development is not being served by this current structure, because 19 priorities means that you're constantly re-arguing, constantly relitigating, even after the policy direction is set. And the poor city manager, by the way, is the one that often gets caught in the middle. The biggest change, that positive change with Measure A, will be that the city manager and the mayor will work together to implement the will of the council, but without everything being re-argued by 9 members, 19 priorities about how to follow through on what the council said and what the people want.
You know, Mayor Steinberg, you raise an interesting point that I actually want to pause on for a second. Could you share with our colleagues here and with the folks back home watching the frustration or the gap, we'll say, between what you've spoken of in different venues about that, about the difference between being accountable for results, but not necessarily having the power and authority to shape or direct those results?
I had 2,000 people at my home in June for a beautiful, dignified, and powerful demonstration saying, Mayor, you must deliver more on racial equity. You must deliver more on economic equity. I embrace the accountability. I just think that the citywide mayor should have at least a couple of tools to be able to follow through. And again, there is no greater example than the homeless issue. Humbly, I have brought more money to this city to alleviate homelessness than any mayor in history. It takes forever to get something done. And the South Sacramento project is a great example. Once the council gave the direction in August of 2019, this was re-argued and re-litigated by members of the city council. It was unclear where it lay as a priority within the city, within the city management compared to other public works projects. And in the meantime, you look what's happening under the freeway. You look at the number of homeless women that are unsheltered with their children. It's terrible. And we need a system that allows the accountable executive who's elected to be able to follow through on implementation in a balanced way. And this is balanced. It doesn't give the mayor concentrated power. It enhances the city council. It gives the mayor a few tools, and we'll get better results.
All right. Ms. Cofer, I want to come back to an issue. The mayor referenced the protests and uprisings that happened earlier this year. And as a member of the activist community, given the unhappiness that many in that community have had with the decisions by the current city council related to budget and other items, how much worse would how much worse could it be to make changes in a system that many in the activist community already don't like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. And I think one of the things that we have to consider here is that this is not just a governance change, but it comes with a grandfathered in person in that office. And so the mayor comes with the office for 40% of the time that we will have it before we get a chance to reauthorize it in 2030. And so if this passes, we have to consider where he stands on issues. The people protesting at his house this summer want to see major changes in policing. They want to see the police budget decreased, and they want to see those funds being spent on the things that we all know, because data has demonstrated for us, are prevention. They are public safety in the truest sense, not emergency response, but public safety. And that's not on the table. That has been very clearly stated a number of times, that there's no intention of changing our current funding structure when it comes to public safety and investing in those things. So I think we have to take that at face value, that this change doesn't come with some of the changes that we might see in some of the other three or four cities in out of the 482 in California that have this governance change, because our current leader has said that that's not on the agenda. And
I would like to respond to that, by the way, please. Go ahead.
After Ms. Cofer's finished, she still has a few moments.
Okay.
Please wrap up, Ms. Cofer.
And so also, when it comes to these equity proposals that, again, I think are very, very popular, one of the challenges is that they have no teeth, that inclusive economic development has been, in some ways watered down to include things like youth pop-ups, which is not inclusive economic development. And we have a clear definition for that.
Ms. Cofer, I'm going to have to ask you to leave it there.
Okay,
because
sure.
I want to invite former Mayor Fargo to see if there's anything she wants to add before we go over to Mayor Pro Tem Ashby and the mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the 40 million a little bit, because the 40 million, which would go towards supposedly inclusive economic development and some youth programs, no one has talked about the fact that this is not new money. And I apologize for my cat. who apparently is hungry. This is not new money. This is $40 million coming out of the budget. And no one has discussed how many libraries will close, how many fire stations will close, how many park and recreation programs won't happen, so that $40 million can get moved from one place to another. It's so problematic, in fact, that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has joined us in opposing Measure A because they don't think it's going to help any of the Hispanic communities in Sacramento. They think they'll be left further behind.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby.
I'm happy to respond. No libraries are going to close over the 40 million. The 40 million is set to ensure that things like libraries stay open. I've carried 2 bond measures for libraries in my time on the city council and fought really hard for that to remain a resource open. Right now, I personally am fighting for both North Sac libraries to stay open. And honestly, besides the council member for the district, Alan Warren, the next biggest champion is the mayor sitting right there. It's the lowest literacy ratings in the city, and you have 2 of the biggest champions for the kids in that area on this call. I think the call out to make sure that the city of Sacramento always spends at least 40 million out of the budget is an important piece of this. But really, here's the thing, Scott, and let me clear one thing up. I have to try not to laugh when people bring up Howard because he's a close personal friend of mine. He lives in my district. I've been friends with him forever. I practically forced him to take that job because he's the 5th city manager that we've worked with and by far the best. But there were times in the city's history, not when Howard was there, when we voted for things like funding ambulances and the city manager didn't agree with the funding structure that the council approved. So we had to wait an extra 1.5 years for 2 ambulances to come on, one in Atomis and one in Meadowview. I fought as hard as I could, and the council agreed. It still wasn't enough because I still had to fight the city manager after the vote was over with. So, what we're really talking about in an executive mayor is rather than getting 6 council members to agree to fire a city manager because they don't agree on one topic, is about holding a mayor accountable all the time. A mayor who's constantly in the spotlight, a mayor who's had 2,000 people on his front lawn. Both Heather Fargo and Darrell Steinberg know exactly what it's like to be mayor. You're under the spotlight all the time. People are never going to let you walk away from that responsibility and that duty. And yet, Darrell had to run against me. And then he gets in there and has to fight me for every agenda item that he wanted to implement. We had 2 very different agendas. Darrell was really clear. He was running to address homelessness, right? I was running to do something different than that. And he's had a really hard time. He's struggled with that because the council members have different ideas for their districts. So if you want a mayor with this,
we're going to have to ask you to wrap.
Sure. If you want to ask mayors during a campaign to give you a city-wide vision, then you have to give them the tools to implement that vision. Otherwise, just have 9 council members.
Okay. Mayor Steinberg, you've been very patient. Respond, but we need to move on.
Of course. Dr. Cofer has her view of my record and where I stand. I think it's important that I speak for myself here. I've been elected 10 times in this city, and I've been elected on a progressive agenda, so much so that there are some in the business community that think I'm far too progressive. Mayor Fargo says the 40 million is not new money. Yes, it is. It happened because I went to the voters in 2018 with Councilmember Ashby to ask the voters for an additional 0.5-cent sales tax, actually to put into neighborhood-based economic development, into workforce, into affordable housing. And yes, because of this structure, we have had a heck of a time. We have followed through between Measure U and the CARES Act funding, but I don't want to have to refight that battle every single year. My commitment to the neighborhoods and to progressive politics in this city is unmatched. And I believe that this structure will allow us to have more consistent investment in not only alleviating homelessness, but in helping to build up our neighborhoods. And that's why I ran for mayor. That's why I put forward the new money, the additional offset with Measure U. And that's why I'm taking this question to voters in 2020, because I believe that the people are rightfully demanding more and that we need a changed system in order to be able to deliver that.
Thank you, Mayor Steinberg. Ms. Cofer, we're going to give you the last word and to respond to the mayor's point, and also to respond very quickly to the point that isn't the social equity analysis and provisions, just yes or no, a victory and a step forward for the causes and issues that the activists have been protesting for?
They would be if they had teeth, but they don't, so they're not. As far as Measure U, since I'm the chair, I want to point out that, you know, the half cent was intended to be for inclusive economic development and several other purposes, but that's not what it's been spent on. Every year we have gone, the first half cent was supposed to stay where it was, and the second half cent was supposed to be spent on these things. And every year the money for policing has gone up. So when the mayor's on the record saying he does not believe in reducing the police budget, but is also saying that this $40 million is going to exist, those two things are incompatible, because there is an obligation to your police and fire departments, and there's also the $40 million. And so one of them is going to have to be cut. And so the only way to do that is either to reduce the police budget, and also then to make good on the promise of Measure G, which was defeated in March, but would have set aside about $12 million for youth. Now all of a sudden there's $10 million on the table for youth, and it's confusing how just a few months ago we were saying no to that, but now we're saying yes to this. It's not.
Ms. Cofer, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to all of you. And that's our show. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you for watching Studio Sacramento. I'm Scott Syphax. See you next time right here on KVIE. All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.